Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
How is this not a hate crime? How is this not a hate crime?
I would argue, I'd be the first to admit that Canada is far from a perfect country. It is an imperfect country, but is there even such a thing as a perfect country in the entire world? And furthermore, I would rank Canada in the top 10 of countries I would most want to live in. I think many people in the world would echo that, given the immigration that comes into countries like Canada and the US. So despite our imperfections, I don't think this is a country, this is a concept that deserves to be canceled.
Well, I can think of two countries who think they're perfect. Okay, Kim Jong-un's North Korea and Xi Jinping's Communist China.
Yeah.
They think they're perfect. As we witness the organ harvesting, the re-education camps, the concentration camps, Joseph Stalin thought he had a perfect country. Adolf Hitler thought he had a perfect country. There is no perfection with man. We will always make some errors. We will always make some mistakes. To err is to be human. You know, but Canadians have always said and asked for forgiveness if we did err. And we approach things with honesty and truthfulness, not with duplicity and evil as we're seeing happening now with our governments.
On July 1st, what do you think is the one most important thing Canadians should be rallying for?
I think the extremely important point is let's not forget the people that fought for our nation. Let's not forget what we have engraved on the Peace Tower. Let's not forget that God is supreme, that our country is founded on the supremacy of God, recognizing the supremacy of God. So every July 1st, let's not forget, how did we get where we are? Let's not forget what happened. Let's not forget the people that fought for this country. Let's not forget what we have written down in our Constitution, because if we leave that foundation, our house will not stand.
It's sad and comprehensive that we have authoritarian governments like that all across the country, and the worst of these governments are the supposed to be conservative one.
David Menzies for Rebel News here in Ottawa. Well, folks, I'm on the Portage Bridge, which spans from Ottawa into the province of Quebec. And we just saw hundreds of demonstrators walking down the bridge from the Ottawa side, meeting up with hundreds of demonstrators from the Quebec side. This is being billed as the second annual rally for Dominion Day. And, well, if you know my opinion on the name of our national holiday, you indeed had me at Dominion Day. And I guess the question is, what are these people rallying for? Certainly there's no shortage of issues, especially during the Wuhan virus pandemic. We have seen so many of our rights stripped away. We have seen so many constitutional and charter violations. Maybe that's what they're rallying for. Maybe it's a rally to get this economy open up. It's still a ghost of what it used to be going back to 2019. So we're going to meet up with some of these people here on July 1st and find out what exactly it is that they are rallying for.
Rebel News!
So, Chrissy, what brings you out to the Dominion Day rally here in Ottawa today?
Well, I brought my daughter down and I wanted to show her what true freedom is. It's our right to be here. And if they're trying to shut down Canada Day, like, we have the right to protest and to speak our piece and to demand freedom.
Fantastic. And, you know, it's interesting because this is billed as the second annual Dominion Day rally. What are you rallying for?
For my children's future, for freedom.
Do you feel that's under attack right now with this government?
Absolutely. we're under lockdown after lockdown, and it's just going to keep happening. And we know another lockdown's looming, right? It's just a matter of time.
Folks, I interrupt this video for a very urgent message. You know it's only a matter of time before the Silicon Valley tech giants come and crush Rebel News, or at least try to crush Rebel News once and for all. We're not going to let that happen. Please go to rebelnews.com. That's rebelnews.com. We need you to sign up with us there on our website. We need your phone number. We need your email address. We do not share your personal information with anyone else. But if we can get that information from you, you can maintain your relationship with Rebel News going forward in the future.
See you on Canada Day. See you. Good to see you celebrating freedom.
I still call it Dominion Day.
Well, Dominion Day, Canada Day, is a day that we celebrate our freedoms.
Fantastic.
It's the day we celebrate the great country and the great people that have made this a great country.
But you know, Randy, I notice we're shaking hands. In Peterborough, this is a crime, evidently, as is laughing. What do you make of that?
Well, we know that over the last 16 months, David, and many of your audience know this as well, that many Canadian politicians, many Canadian public institutions have taken us on a very deep and dark path away from our traditions, away from our heritage, away from what makes Canada great, away from embracing freedom and denigrating freedom, and instead of respecting law-abiding people, making them into criminals, instead of loving thy neighbor, to rat out and snitch on your neighbor.
And Randy, you know, I want to go back to April when I last saw you in Peterborough at Confederation Square. I think it's safe to say there was about 1,000 people there. That's a big deal for Peterborough. And when the police started handing out tickets, what are the odds, sir, that you get a ticket, Mr. Bernier gets a ticket, I get a ticket, and it seemed that, you know, according to the police, they're just randomly giving out tickets, but it seems to me an incredible coincidence that those members of the political and media class that are persona non grata are getting a disproportionate number of tickets. How did that happen?
Yeah, like this is not, anybody who thinks this is random is not thinking. This has been targeted. Those with the who are speaking out the greatest and who are exposing the contradictions and the hypocrisy, those who are defending what Canada actually is, are singled out by our governments, by our public institutions, and for special and significant abuse of process and abuse of the law.
Well, folks, I'm with People's Party of Canada leader Maxime Bernier right here in front of the Supreme Court of Canada. And Maxime, I got to tell you, going back several weeks ago, your visit to Manitoba was shocking and disturbing. That scene of you being hauled away in handcuffs by the RCMP. And going back to that video, I think the most profound thing you said was when the police officer said, "Do you have any arms on you?" And you said, "Only my words, only my ideas." And really, is that Canada in 2021 where we embrace all kinds of diversity, but a diversity of opinion, a diversity of thought, that is indeed a thought crime?
Yes, absolutely. I was shocked about that because it was political repression. I've been arrested, handcuffed, and put in jail like a criminal. And when that policeman asked me the question about, do you have any weapons or do you have something that can hurt me? You know, I'm a politician. You know, I'm traveling across the country. I don't have any arms on me. And I said, you know, no weapons, only my words, only my philosophy, what I believe. And that because that was a political repression. Don't forget that the premier of that province, Mr. Pallister, said the day before I arrived in Manitoba that I was not welcome. He didn't want to see me there. So they don't want to have anybody that will challenge the mainstream position on COVID-19. And, that's a fight that I will always do. I'm traveling across the country. I'm doing the Mad Max Freedom Tour, and it's too important. It's sad that we have to fight for our freedoms in 2021 in Canada, but I'll do that, and you can count on me. I won't do any compromise with our principles.
And Mr. Bernier, the other shocking thing I thought was the lack of outcry you would see by the political elite here, by the media elite. In fact, there was more attention south of the border about what happened to you. You went on the Tucker Carlson show on Fox News. Of course, they have the First Amendment there. That's something we don't have. But what does it say when what happened to you sort of gets brushed under the rug here in Canada?
Well, that's a nice example of the fact that the mainstream media and the establishment elite politicians are canceling me and canceling the PPC. They don't want to be challenged. And when I received that call from Tucker, I was there, and I was surprised that, I had more coverage in US than in Canada. Arresting a politician for a non-crime after a political gathering in 2021 in Canada, it's for my colleagues, these establishment politicians, for them it's normal. But it's not normal. And I can tell you that I'll be back in Manitoba. I will fight, I will win. And I know that I'm going also to Atlantic Canada in a couple of weeks. And I hope everything will go well. But it's sad and comprehensive that we have authoritarian governments like that all across the country. And the worst of these governments are the supposed to be conservative one.
Well, folks, I'm with Pastor Tobias Thiessen at the Church of God in the province of Manitoba. And my colleague Sid went out to do an interview with you, of course, Tobias. And do you have anything to report in terms of an update in your case against the government and bureaucrats in your neck of the woods?
Well, it's really good to be out here with you, David, and great to see Rebel again. And I just came out of Manitoba to join here in Ottawa to get a little feeling of freedom again, because back at home there's still an active warrant. In fact, today it's 5 weeks since that warrant has been issued, and I wish I had an update, but I unfortunately don't. It's been very quiet. We're supposed to be in court on July 8th for an appearance, and then things will go from there. It's really slow. They have not come to the church to arrest me there because they don't want those optics. They don't want people to see them do that, take somebody out of the church. And outside of the church, they haven't found me. And so it seems to be stretched out into a rather long cat and mouse game, pretty much.
Let them be.
Yeah, but you know what they do, right?
I know.
What do they do?
CBC.
They push propaganda.
It's freedom of the press.
They're not free. They're oppressive.
They're allowed to be here.
Rebel News is free. CBC's not.
Know that I've seen me know that. I just want to say,
CBC's state-funded propaganda.
They have the right to be here the same way you do.
Yeah, and they have the right to tell the truth.
They have the
Has anybody heard of that?
They have the obligation to tell the truth. They have a duty to themselves to be journalists, to tell the truth. Report the real news.
Well, I'm with Pastor Henry Hildebrand from Elmer, Ontario, the Church of God. And first of all, Pastor, can you give us an update on this jihad that the local government is carrying out against your church? Last I heard, the fines were several $1,000s. They had locked you out of your church. Anything new on your front for your right to practice your faith?
So the fines right now stand at $273,500. That was done in 3 different stages. At this point, the Crown is trying to put a lien against our property, trying to see if they can do that to make sure that we will be paying the fines. I do not understand how are we supposed to pay fines on something that we don't even know if it's constitutionally correct, because in October we're supposed to find out what is the Constitution saying about all these mandates that have come in. So before that, why are we being charged? Why are we being fined beyond human understanding, which has never happened before in Canada? Why are we doing that when we all know that this is something new, that it hasn't been tried, it hasn't been challenged, the Constitution hasn't been challenged? It seems very, very wrong. And we have pastors in jail right now as I speak. What is going on? It seems very wrong. Also, it seems like anymore in Canada, we are declared unhealthy until proven healthy.
It is perverse. And I mean, you mentioned pastors in jail. Of course, you're referring to a couple of pastors in Alberta. And I'm just trying to figure out, Pastor Hildebrand, what is going on. You have a premier in Alberta, Jason Kenney, who, when he was a member of the Harper government, an MP, he was behind a religious freedom bill. Was that just religious freedom for other countries around the world, with Canada or Alberta excluded? I mean, of all people to be throwing pastors into maximum security facilities, this would be the least likely person I'd ever dream of doing this.
Exactly. And I think that's what shocked basically the whole nation, because the premier from Alberta had just not that long ago said and invited people, said, if you have religious persecution, come to Canada. Here you'll have a haven. And now in his very own province. And then to add injury, what he said to that, then he is dining up there on the high rise.
Oh, the Sky Palace.
Sky Palace. And maybe we should say the peasants are slaving away and the churches are locked up. That did not go over well. It seems very, very wrong. And it seems like something needs to be clarified here, because it just isn't right.
A few days ago, we went to a taping of the Murdoch Mysteries in Peterborough, Ontario, CBC show. Lots of laughing, lots of handshaking, no cops, no tickets. What do you make of that?
Well, again, this is the hypocrisy and the contradictions and the abuse of the law. You know, we saw this, in London, where Doug Ford and Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh said Corona doesn't happen because we have sanctioned this vigil for this family, and and that's good, that's okay. But how can they say that it's a danger for you and I to speak together, or for me to be with 1,000 people or 10,000 people, but that's criminal if I do it, but it's virtuous if Justin Trudeau does it and Doug Ford does it.
Yeah, I saw a picture of him the other day standing right next to Queen Elizabeth herself. Yeah. No mask, no social distancing. I guess the Wuhan virus likes those kind of people as opposed to the great unwashed masses.
Well, I think what people need to see is how our society is changing for the worse. We saw with the removal of the statue of Sir John A., the covering up of the statue of Sir John A. At Queen's Park, the removal of Edgerton Ryerson, we are canceling the left, the socialists, the public service. Our governments are attempting to remake Canada in this distorted, perverted image where we do not have freedom, where we do not have responsibility, where we do not have prosperity, we do not have faith. And they are doing everything possible to take away what it is to be Canadian.
And why would they do that? I mean, indeed, you're right. Dominion Day in 2021, it's very different. It's very melancholy. You see so many jurisdictions saying, oh, we're not celebrating Canada Day, we're canceling Canada Day, lowering the flag, tearing down statues, only certain statues, mind you. What is the unspoken strategy behind all this carnage? I mean, Mr. Hillier, how does removing statues and monuments and renaming streets on people that have been dead for more than 200 years. How does that change anything in the social justice of the here and now?
Well, it doesn't change anything with regard to justice, but it does distort the public's view of what it is to be Canadian. And that's really the greatest danger here, is to convince Canadians that we're not kind, to convince Canadians that we're not compassionate, convince Canadians that we're angry and we're evil, and that we've got a horrific, terrible past that we should be ashamed of, and that is very defeating to the psychology of the nations, defeating and demotivating and it prevents our country from growing and for individuals from growing.
It's kind of funny. You can have people in this country that advocate that Canada is a genocidal state, that Canada should not exist.
That's untrue.
But what I'm getting at, those people can voice those opinions and they're free to do so. You speak out against North Korea as a North Korean, as a Chinese citizen against the Chinese Communist Party, you disappear.
That's right, yeah. And we've seen that through history. Remember in Argentina, there was the disappeared, the 30,000 people who tried to advance freedom, but the junta took their lives away. And there is no perfection in life, David.
One last question, Randy. This event is being billed as the second annual Dominion Day rally. What do you think is the one thing that Canadians should be rallying for on July 1st?
On July 1st, they should, if you want to be a Canadian, act like a Canadian. Have a backbone. Have a voice. Be visible. Be public. And defend your family and yourself by defending your country as well.
Well, folks, the second annual rally for Dominion Day, it is starting to wind down now. And when I asked most people in the crowd what it is that they are rallying for, I think the most consistent answer was simply freedom. And, isn't that kind of sad? We used to take for granted our freedoms in Canada, didn't we? At least until the coronavirus became a fact of life. And then we suddenly saw certain rights and freedoms being eclipsed and even extinguished. And on that note, Dominion Day 2021, it is kind of a melancholy affair. So many municipalities have canceled their Canada Day celebrations. They have taken down the Canadian flag or flown it at half-staff. Some people even have denounced the very idea of Canada. We have statues being torn down. We have institutions and streets being renamed for Europeans that have been dead for more than 200 years. And yet, who does this help? How does this fix anything in the here and now? Yes, Canada is very much an imperfect country, but show me one nation anywhere in the world that is perfect. That nation, that utopia does not exist. And even with Canada's imperfections, all I can say is that Canada has to be in the top 10, perhaps top 5 countries in the world when it comes to living in a regime where we do have rights and freedoms. For myself, I can't think of any other country I would rather live in. Let's not tear down Canada. Let's not cancel our great Dominion. Let's look forward and make it an even greater nation than it already is. For Rebel News, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies. Well, folks, it's funny, isn't it? Ever since the pandemic hit, the mainstream media, they've actually cut back on their news coverage, safety or something, I guess. We here at Rebel News, we have never been busier, and we will go wherever news is occurring. The other thing is, of course, we don't receive a single cent of Justin Trudeau's media bailout money, nor would we accept it if it were offered. We depend on you, my friends, to bring you the other side of the story. That's why, if you can, please go to lockdownreports.com. That's lockdownreports.com. My cameraman Mocha and I, we just got back from Ottawa. We had some expenses with that trip. And if you can find a few bucks to help us cover those expenses, it would be greatly appreciated.